Well, welcome everyone. I am so excited to be here with you all. I'm Dr. Philip Blue. I'm professor of applied neuroscience at the Wright Graduate University and coach at our nonprofit, the Wright Foundation for the Realization of Human Potential. I took over the media team during COVID, during the pandemic, when we were struggling and scared, like everyone, and that first week when we're like, oh my gosh, how are we gonna handle all of this new stuff, and how are we gonna do really high touch trainings online? And that was kind of when I started engaging with the media team, and over time, we all got to unify together. And tonight in this talk, or today in this talk, I'm really going to report on what we've learned over the last year and a half. But I want to set a little context because most companies are looking at the transaction that occurs on Zoom. And of course, we want to make sure we nail that. And I'll touch on the technical skills needed for that. But what I want to do is set the umbrella, set the context for what we do, because we're a high touch business. And this is not about Zoom or content, but what we're about is uplifting people's lives. And online trainings are simply a way to do that. And what we care about is a way to bring the most out of people. And how do we support and engender that experience for our people? So we want to support the participants, but in our trainings, we also want to be supporting the speaker and the staff and the volunteers. And in the Wright Graduate University, we talk about transformational education. And when we talk about transformational education, we're talking about transforming not only the student, but the teacher, the faculty, the school, and the greater environment and the community. That's what we're orienting toward. So Zoom and all of the online platforms that we're using, they're simply tools for us to facilitate that. And I trust that that's probably one of the harder things to do. And so we really push Zoom to its limit. And I'm really excited to report to you on what we do. But a lot of what we do is, creating an experience. It's not just fun or entertaining. It's about bringing the best out in our participants. And not only bring out the best in our participants, but bringing the best out in ourselves as we're doing it. And so we have literally teams of people working on our events, our trainings, and our meetings to ensure that the participants are getting a great experience, but that the whole experience is transformative itself. And I'm really excited to share with you how we do that. So my team, after each training, pretty much we do a postmortem on how can we get to the bottom of making this training better? How can each training be better than the one before it? And also, are we appreciating the nuances of Zoom, and are we using and leveraging the platform enough so that it's helping push our students? Now, Zoom's constantly coming out with updates, and there's different platforms emerging with Teams and all these cool things, Hipin or Hopin, and all these cool platforms coming out. But the focus is always on how are we serving and how are we being served? And that's what I want to make sure I highlight tonight. Now, one of the skills that our team has had to learn during this move to online is consciousness. And what does it mean to be conscious? Because anyone can follow along and go along with the speaker and click a PowerPoint and follow the PowerPoint or do breakout rooms or anything like that. But to be conscious and stay with the speaker emotionally is a really key skill, and it's something that we've had to learn. And this is an example of one of the several social emotional intelligence skills that our team has had to learn to really ensure the success of any event that we've done online. And today, what I'm going to be talking about is how do we help people engage? When I say engage, I'm calling on the term defined by Dr. Judith Wright in her research with Dr. Bob Wright on what we call the Evolating model. And the Evolating model is a 6-phase model on human transformation. And this is based on years of research. I'm not going to have enough time at all in this lunch and learn because we have 45 minutes to go into it. But I want to give you a high level outline of what it is so that you understand the context within which I mean engaging. Evolating starts with yearning. Yearning is our innate human desire. It's the motivation underlying all our human behavior. And we first yearn, we learn to yearn. We teach our students to yearn. In fact, we do yearning-based learning at the Wright Graduate School. And this is really important. And I'll touch on this later when we're talking about how we interact with our students. So we have yearning, and then we have engaging. And notice that this model is not a linear model. It's not like a step-by-step model. It's happening all the time. It's a dynamic model that's happening all the time. But when we talk about engaging, we're talking about acting on our yearnings, taking our yearnings into our lives. Then after that, we have revelating. When we engage and we yearn, we learn about ourselves and we reveal ourselves to others. And in doing so, we also learn about ourselves. Then we have liberating, where we do what we've never done before. We say the unsayable, do the undoable. And then after that, we consciously engage in our own transformation and start seeing that we have a matrix within which we live. We actively work on changing that, adapting that. We call that rematrixing. And then finally, if we do that enough over a long period of time, AKA our whole lives, that's dedicating. So that's the elevating model, but I'm just going to focus on engaging today. And I'm just going to very brightly touch on it, because when we're talking about engaging, this is the key thing that we're looking up in our events. When I was doing research before this talk, I was looking at what are companies struggling. We have over 1.5 billion students doing online education right now. And over 90% of corporations in the world are engaging in online activities and online learning. And so this is a huge issue for the whole world. And some people are doing great and others are struggling. The people I talk to in education tend to be struggling with students, especially students with more needs. They tend to struggle even more with this. And so it's a really key, we're talking about an issue that we really need to work on all together. And so this is just a pebble in a bucket for us all to move forward with this. But in the research, they say the two main things that people are struggling with right now are engaging and interaction. So interaction and engaging are the things that we're going to talk about today, because it's also what we look for in our students, not only in person online events, but also in-person events. And so I'm going to break this down into several different categories. But in the traditional sense, people are focusing on interaction between the speaker and the audience. And that's what people are looking at. It's how can I interact and manipulate or make my audience get what I want them to get. But today, we're also going to take another approach. We also want to look at the interaction of the audience to the speaker, and then also the speaker support to the speaker, and then the speaker back to the speaker support. There is a whole ecosystem of interaction that's happening in an event, and we have full court pressed all of them, and it's just been incredible. I cannot tell you how amazing it is to do our trainings and see how much people get out of it, because our staff get as much out of it as our students. And Dr. Bob often says, Dr. Bob Wright is the co-founder of the foundation in the graduate school. He always, kind of quotes the adage, campus for the counselors. And in a sense, when you all are running your events or you're running your meetings and you've got people with you, they're lucky to be with you. And it's a unique opportunity to mind meld and get together and work on something together. And I just am really excited to share with you about it. So what I'm going to talk about, what I'll start out with, is how we emphasize and increase the first one, speaker to audience. Now, one of the tools that we use to enhance the speaker to audience interaction is spotlighting. You'll notice that you just see me right now, unless you've gone to your gallery view and you want to see who else is here. You're just seeing me, and that's on purpose. This is a talk. We're going to have some interaction, especially if we have more people on, we'll have some interaction, but this is a talk. And I'm intending to hold your focus for as long as I can. I'm going to have things break it up, but I want you looking at me right now. And there's a reason for that. And so spotlighting is a really effective tool, because when you spotlight someone, you are taking the attention, you're taking the control of what someone's looking at, and you're bringing it right to that person. Now, you can spotlight multiple people at the same time, and there are nuances about that. And it's very important to track with the speaker on whether or not they want someone spotlighted and brought up with them. Because spotlighting, you want to keep in contact, is not just, showing someone on a screen. You're literally bringing them on the stage. This is the new stage. And so as the technician and the support of the speaker in their interaction with the audience, it's very important that you are selective in who you bring up and make sure that they're going to help move the room forward, move the meeting forward, and that you are supporting the speaker in doing that. Now, there are times not to use spotlighting. If this were a very interactive meeting where we wanted to get get ideas going and brainstorm together, I would absolutely not spotlight. I would recommend not spotlighting. I would just make sure we remove all spotlights, ask everyone to go to gallery view, which is at the top right, and we'll go over views in a second. Ask people to go to gallery view and facilitate that. A lot of people don't know about gallery view, folks, and it's important to highlight to people that they can go to the top right of their screen, click on view, and go to gallery view, and it's going to create a whole different experience. In a moment, I'm going to show you a video, and you're going to get to see how our participants get to interact with each other, and the gallery view is a really important aspect of that. Now, another moment that we use spotlighting is not only to bring people up on stage, but we do a thing. The Wright Graduate University does a lot of research on what facilitates good learning. And one of the things that facilitates really good learning is what we call performative education. And one of the performative educational techniques that we use is dancing. Now, you may ask, like, okay, so how do we do dancing on Zoom? It's exceptionally awkward. Well, we've pushed beyond that. Also with networking, we pushed beyond that as well. We've kind of broken all those barriers. But with dancing, one of the things that we do is we'll share sound. We'll just share the sound. We won't share a screen or anything like that. We'll just share sound only. It's an advanced setting in Zoom. You go to share screen, advanced settings, share sound only. It's in the middle. When you do that, you can share music, but at the same time, you can spotlight people and they take up the whole screen. And at the beginning, we would spotlight, just one person at a time, and everyone would kind of follow with them and they're dancing and all of that. But we've actually moved to spotlighting several people at the same time. As our trainings get bigger and bigger and more and more people come, we'll spotlight 3 or 4 dancers at the same time. And it's kind of fun to see them change and shift. But every time you do something, though, you have an opportunity to really mind meld with the crowd, and you're expressing and you're communicating something with the crowd. So sometimes I'll put like a really, really, slow kind of like mellow dancer with a crazy dancer who's like going all crazy, or like a mom and her daughter will be dancing. I'll put a father and a son together, or, but there's certain patterns you can do, but you're really playing with it. But what's really important is that you're going to miss the opportunity to do this if you're not in line and in rapport with the crowd. When I'm doing an event, I'm constantly in gallery view, looking through the people, getting a sense of the training, seeing how are people doing? Like, what is the state of the room? What is the state of what's going on? And so I'm using gallery view in the background to see what's going on, who's engaged. And then when we do things like dancing, I want to get them up on screen and play to the highest common denominator, which is something we talk about also when in our groups, is that we want to make sure that we're going to the person, we're emphasizing and highlighting the person who's going to help bring the room forward. And this is a really important skill that our whole team is working on in the background in concert with the presenter or whoever's on screen. So that's spotlighting. Another thing you'll notice is that when we share our screen and we put up a slide, there's a vertical bar that comes up. Now you'll notice the Wright Foundation slide and then my video on your right. Now, when this happens and you move your mouse over that blank vertical area between the slide and myself, there's a vertical bar that comes up. And what you want to do is you want to help your participants or viewers or people that are there know that they can move that bar. And we tend to, because we're emphasizing engagement and interaction and interpersonal connectedness, we pull that bar to the left to make the slide a little bit smaller and the speaker a little bit bigger. We want people to feel the speaker. In the beginning, Zoom didn't have this. In the beginning, we were just a postage stamp at the top right. And over time, Zoom is starting to shift, but you've got to help your participants and the people there in the meeting know the capabilities that they have in a meeting, and that they can control their screen and feel closer to you. Remember, folks, before, when people came to an in-person training, they were very far away from the main speaker. Oftentimes they were sitting in the back row. Even people in the front row didn't get eye-to-eye contact with the speaker like you're getting with me right now. And so we want to help people get the most out of that and emphasize that interpersonal connectedness. It's a very unique time, and we want to make sure that the participants know that they can do that. Another trick we use to emphasize engagement from speaker to the audience is when we show a video, and we're going to show a video in a second. When we show a video, we actually highlight a black screen with the video up, and they can actually pull the bar all the way to the right and make that black screen very small so that the video can take up the entire experience for them, the entire screen. This is also another really cool thing for the speakers to be able to give to the audience, because we have used videos in incredible ways. There are some trainings that we've done, and I'm not going to go into the details of them, but when we want to elicit an emotion or create an experience, we have learned to use videos to do that. And one of the things that's important, though, is to make sure there's no distractions and help them pull the bar to the right, the opposite direction we were just talking about, so the video can be large and they can really focus on this video. And we're going to go ahead and do this right now, and you're going to see a video. Also, by the way, just a side factor is, an awkward thing for speakers is when the video is up and the video is more than 20 seconds, they don't know what to do or where to look, because they can't look down at their notes, because all you're seeing is them in the video. So right now, Jack, who's on my media team, we work together. We're partners in this whole project. And a lot of the stuff I'm talking about, Jack and I kind of developed together to help accommodate what Drs. Bob and Judith and Barbara and all of our staff were imagining into. We would try to make that happen, and then they would help partner with us and make it happen. It was this whole cool process. So Jack's going to highlight the black screen right now, and we just have a separate computer and we call it black. And then we're going to play a video to you of our interaction online.
You go into your chat, and I said, hi, I'd like to share. And everybody that was in the Zoom, probably over 100 people, I assume, there were tears, there was pain. It was as if Bob, through the computer, like Bob was holding my hands, looking into my eyes. It was just him and I can't still believe how impactful it was for me, to me, through Zoom. Unbelievable.
I want you to imagine that you are moving to a level of aliveness and engagement and creation beyond anything you've ever done before in your life, knowing that life happens in the here and now.
So let's try that. You want to say it with me? I will not live an unlived life.
That's how we become who we could become.
Isn't that cool? I love that video. I think it's the coolest thing ever, because you get to see the dancing and what's going on in the interaction in our meetings. That's a video we actually pulled and created for our online one of our online trainings called the More Life training, and it's just been incredible. To see the interaction. The More Life training is a training we do for people who have never done any personal growth work, never done any work with us before, and we do it for them, and it's online. It's the whole weekend, and people get a ton out of it. There's a lot of interaction. Now, later, if you have interest, you can contact me. But the point is, I want to show you that you have the black screen up there, and that's all you see is that video. And again, this is not like Zoom designed things. Zoom actually, in many ways, is behind on a lot of its development, because Zoom as a company has been focusing on education. So their main focus is on schools, and they're kind of focusing on that. So in the long run, we kind of all believe that Microsoft Teams will probably end up winning like the war in terms of like corporate and businesses and all that stuff. But right now, Zoom, the big thing with Zoom is that a lot of people have it and people understand it and they use it, and so it really works well. And a lot of what I'm talking about today is about Zoom and using Zoom as a platform. So that was speaker to audience interaction. I want to shift gears here to audience with speaker interaction engagement, because it's also important that the audience and the audience gets to interact with the speaker. Today, actually, uniquely, we won't have a lot of interactions with that because it's a lunch and learn. And the main focus is to get you as much information as we can as possible. But typically, and we will have a little bit, but typically we would really want what Dr. Bob and Dr. Judith do so well, and it's so cool, is that they bring the content out of the audience. And so a lot of our material and all that stuff is dynamic. In other words, like a lot of people don't understand that when Dr. Judith and Dr. Bob do polls, or they're checking in on people in the beginning, the whole outline and the whole script may shift within hours. And we are constantly changing things as we go based on who's at the training. And this gives us a very unique opportunity to do that because we can check in people, do polls, do chats, all these things, and get the pulse of where people are at. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how they've done that and brought the audience into telling the speaker about what they want and engaging with the speaker. Now, one of the things that this is drawing from is from our Wright Graduate University curriculum called Yearning-Based Learning. And on our graduate school weekends, I get the opportunity to partner with Dr. Judith, and we teach first-year master's students. And it's so fun because a lot of people want to like know what we're going to cover ahead of time and, get all their stuff ready. And we just tell them, we're going to see where you go with it. And it's so cool to see Dr. Judith bring out like what people are interested in. And this is a skill that I'm not going to teach today because I don't have it either. We're all learning it from her. But the point is that there's an emphasis on bringing out the content from the audience. One of the tools we use to do that is polls. And so right now I'm going to put up a poll and ask you about which areas of these interaction do you excel most at and you excel least at. And you'll notice that I've got two questions in this poll. I've got a question, first, which of the following types of interaction do you excel at most in your events or meetings? And then which of the following types of interactions do you excel at least in your meetings? And as people are responding, because I'm a co-host, I'm able to actually see what people are saying and get the responses. And for the sake of time, I'm just going to end the poll now, and I'll look at the audience. And what I'm seeing is that people excel most on this training, on this Lunch and Learn, for speaker to audience interaction, which is typical. This is what I would expect. And where they're looking for the most support is speaker to speaker. And that's going to be really important. And I appreciate you saying that. And we'll go into that speaker to speaker in just a moment. So thank you. But I want you to look at the polls we use very intentionally. The polls aren't just some distraction to like increase engagement. It's really the opportunity for the audience to tell us as the speakers, what do they want and what do they need from this training? And so that's how we use polls. And typically we'll do like one poll at a time. I did two at the same time because these were very similar polls and I wanted to get the data quickly for the sake of time. But polls are very important, very easy to do in the background. You can put them in at zoom.us. You just go register, you log in and you enter them there. But polls are very easy, good way to increase engagement with the audience to the speaker. Another thing to increase engagement with the audience to the speaker is the view selection. And I'd mentioned this earlier about gallery versus speaker view. But one of the things that we help our students know is that during a training, they can go up to the top right and we'll kind of guide them about what view they should be in. We'll say, oh, you know what, switch back to gallery view. If we want them in speaker view, we just spotlight, that'll take them directly to speaker view. But if we want them in gallery view, we'll tell them. And we're really tailoring an experience. And this is where you don't get this on in-person events. We can kind of control where people look. It's really kind of cool. And you can control the whole kind of meeting. And so I like having control, not of a lot of things in my life, but one of the things that I've learned in this process is how to have control and maintain control. This was a very hard thing for me at the beginning that I had to learn. I learned AV and media. Dr. Bob, Dr. Judith, and I, before the pandemic, would go to China a lot, and we would do transformational leadership trainings out there. Imagine like, if you have an AV team or whatever, you've got someone like running the PowerPoints, you got someone doing sound, you got someone doing the video cameras, you got someone putting up the videos, all that stuff. But we didn't really have that. So I kind of had to learn all of that on the fly in China when we were shifting between different venues and all that stuff. And that was really the start of it. But one of the things that I learned, and what's really important when you're supporting an event or a meeting, is having control. And also making sure that the speaker or the talent know that you have control. When you don't respond to them and they're looking to communicate with you, or you don't get on things really quickly, or the host of the venue says, oh, I'm sorry, we can't practice before the talk. It's time to be assertive. You really have to speak up for your speaker and your talent. And this has been a huge growth move for me, because we have different personality types, and my personality type is called a cooperator, which means that I'm very much person oriented and I tend to be more passive. And so for me, speaking up for my speaker is a scary thing. And so when we are on a training, or we're going on a Zoom, or we're going to do something, I make sure that myself or Jack or whoever is running this training has control of the meeting, and that we know who, if it's not us, we know who is, and that they are competent. Because a lot of people aren't as competent as they come off as. A lot of people will be confident, but you got to make sure that you are ready to go and ready to take over the meeting if needed. And another thing is that the engagement of the audience to the speaker. We have a team of people. There's an infrastructure of people making sure that the audience's voices gets heard. If you come on a training with us, you'll see that the chat is like a machine gun. It just flows because people are engaging in the chat as they're engaging in the content. It's actually a really good sign of engagement, by the way. If you want to tap the pulse of a room, see if people are chatting. It's a really, really great tool of engagement. But what happens when people chat really important questions, or they chat they want to share, and the speaker doesn't see it? What do you do then? Well, what we do is we have a whole system behind the scene, literally teams of people who are recording down questions and sending them to the speaker through a separate platform. We literally use a different instant messaging platform. We have a computer dedicated to that so that we can get important communications to the speaker and they can see what's going on. Now, for that, we use Trillian. It's a 90s instant messenger platform. The reason we like it is because you could change the font. That's it. It's awesome. I mean, you can make the font like huge. But in doing so, what's really important is that we can get communication to the presenter so that the speaker and the audience can connect, and more importantly, that the audience feels seen and heard. It's very scary on an online event because you kind of feel like you're not there. And this is what happens oftentimes, is that the speaker is so focused on connecting with the audience that they forget the audience to them. And so we have a picture of a really, really famous speaker who spent millions of dollars on this incredible system. I mean, like really incredible. We could throw that up now, actually. It's Tony Robbins. And I was so inspired by his setup. And I love how Tony Robbins pushes it and pushes the envelope and goes for it. And he threw down and got this right away in the beginning of the pandemic. And it was really inspiring. I looked into this. We all looked into this whole like 360-degree thing. And the more we research it, the more we realize that it's great for the speaker. You're in the middle, you've got 10,000 participants looking at you, and you get to see all their pictures and stuff. But as the participant, you don't really get to see anything different. You get to see Tony walking around this circle, but you don't really get that face-to-face interaction. So we actually elected not to go that route because it's more of a performance and it's more for the speaker than it is for the audience. And that's not our game. Our game is engagement all around. It's not just about the speaker. It's about making sure that everyone gets to connect. And this is a really, really key thing. And we're also lucky that our talent, Dr. Bob, Dr. Judith, Barbara, they tend to be natural at bringing people out. I mean, that's what we do. And so that's a skill that you're going to want to develop over time if that's not natural for you. But it's a really worthwhile skill in investing in. Now, I'm going to transition to audience. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat and I'll try to get them as I go, because I'm not going to have a typical Q&A at the end. I'm going to end in 15 minutes and that's when I'm going to end. I'll stay on if you have questions, but a lot of people plan to be leaving at 12:45 and that's when I'm going to end. So again, I'll stay on afterwards, but if you have questions, pepper them into the chat. I can keep up. And I've also got my backup, Jack, who will send me the questions if we need to address them. So audience to audience. When we're doing audience to audience, people often complain when I hear about online events that, oh, networking events aren't fun, or I don't get to meet new people, or I feel so lonely. These are all very, very real things, but they're things that we've learned to address and accommodate and actually leverage the online experience to facilitate more engagement. And one of the ways we do that are breakouts. And I think of all the tools that we use, I think breakouts are the one thing that we use beyond anything I've seen anywhere else. We've worked with Zoom engineers, we've worked with literal Zoom experts, and none of them have been able to do breakouts the way we like them. We actually did this is so cool. So we did a fundraiser event in last February, and it was the most impressive event we've ever done in terms of online capacity and playing with Zoom. We had just months of strategizing and meetings with Zoom experts and engineers and all these different contractors and people that could help us. And no one could really figure it out how to do it, what we wanted to do. We had 600 people, over 600 people come on. We wanted to split them up into tables in under 3 or 4 minutes. In other words, we want people to enter our Zoom room, be able to go sit at tables with the people who invited them to the fundraiser and be there with that table of people and meet and talk and network. Well, we got them there, but to get people there, and we had to have them renamed. We used a renaming function that I'll talk about in a second. And then we had to have several hosts at the same time send people off, and when to send them off and how to use them, and we best leverage the hosts to get people in there. And we ended up doing it. We got 600 people into consciously and intentionally manicured rooms. It was around 30 rooms in under 3 or 4 minutes. And it was the coolest thing we've ever done. Zoom actually, the just a little caveat side note, the Zoom network in Chicago actually went down that night. And I don't know if we pushed it or whatever, but there were months of talks with the Zoom engineers after that about what happened and how that happened. But we're really working on pushing it so that we can facilitate that networking and actually help people meet more people, not just be isolated, an isolated tile in a big event on a big 360-degree wall. And the way we use breakouts is really key. And it really facilitates audience-to-audience engagement. And I'm just going to go over a couple things on how we do it. First is that we, again, going back to control, we have control over the meeting. We have control over the breakout rooms. We control the timing. We control what they're saying. We control everything. So we actually broadcast to people what they're saying when they get a chance to say. We give them questions. And if we had more people on today, I would do a paired share, but we're not going to do that today. But we have a thing called a paired share. This is another performative educational methodology that we brought in from Dr. Bob and Dr. Judith at the Wright Graduate University, where we give people a chance to digest. And we send people off with people, and we send them to breakout rooms, and they get to digest the content together, away from the speaker, away from anyone. No one's listening in on them, but they could each person gets a minute to talk about what's coming up for them. And we instruct other people not to interrupt them, and they just get to talk and digest and get to look into what are they getting out of the content. But not only do they get this chance, they get a chance to meet new people. And we have systems where we've renamed and we do numbers and letters and stuff like that, and we instruct our host, and we're actually funneling people through so that they're getting to meet new people every paired share. And we index it, and we have matrices. In the beginning, I kind of did it based on memory, but when it got to over 200 people, my short-term memory couldn't handle it. And then we developed better systems. And the better we get, the less we rely on our memory. But the breakouts are so important because you get to tailor the experience and the networking that people get to experience on an event. If you have any questions about settings and stuff like that, please ask. One of the setting things I do want to mention about breakouts is that you don't want to give them 60 seconds to come back into the room. Give them 10, bring them back. You want to demonstrate and maintain control over the room. When you give them 6 seconds, they pull back in. We put them to the rooms, we bring them back. You don't want to give too much of that. And so, yeah, Jack's putting that up right now. These are the settings we use, and the settings sometimes shift before a meeting. So please make sure that you always have these settings ready to go, especially if you're volunteering or working on a training with us. These are the settings we always use, unless we want to shift it and let people go in on their own. Now you'll notice that there are different types of breakouts. You can let people go in manually, you can automatically put them in, or you can let them go in on their own. I'm not going to go into that level of detail today, but in general, Meetings under 40 people, I'll do manually because I want to manicure them. And then meetings over 50, I'll do automatically, and then I'll manicure after I do that. And then the third one, letting participants choose the room. That's part of what we did to get people into their rooms with the 600 person event, is that we were moving them while they're moving themselves. And it's a very, very cool tool. We use it we don't use it very often, but letting people choose their own rooms does give them a level of agency. But I tend to prefer to have my host move them without them having to move themselves. Another participant to participant or audience to audience tool that I want to emphasize is the chat. And like I said before, we literally have chatterers who are designated to help facilitate the discussion, help move it forward. Chatting is for supporting the content moving forward and revealing what's going on for you and taking and digesting the content, what's coming up. It's not for joking. It's not for, getting distracted or throwing things in there. You want to be very careful about the links you throw in there too. A lot of people just throw in links when the talent are talking about something and the audience is excited and they throw in a link that's, Wikipedia page of the speaker they're just talking about. You have to remember that's taking people away from the meeting. That's taking them out of the meeting. Now, if you were in an in-person event, you wouldn't tell someone to go to another room and check this out. You wouldn't give them a book or a magazine to have them read it while the speaker's talking. And so the links that you put in there have to be very intentional. And you gotta have to be willing to have control and look at what's going on. If someone does put something in the chat that is distracting, or you're concerned that people may get distracted by, a simple way to do it, because you can't clear out the chat, is just enter a period and then press enter, and then do that several times. So you have a series of dots coming down. That's a really good way to kind of clear the chat. And it also kind of sends a message to the person like, hey, let's pay attention here. Let's stay with the speaker. One other tool that I'm actually not going to go into detail here is renaming. The big way to communicate with your host, with your talent, and with other participants is now you have name tags on all the time. Remember on in-person events, you'd have this name tag and it was either like a really sticky thing that would kind of fall off your shirt, or it was something you'd have to poke into your shirt and ruin your shirt and you didn't like that. Well, we have perpetual name tags, but what's on those name tags is very important, and where it is very important. Numbers in the front are going to go chronologically, then letters. And so you want to make sure that you're leveraging thanks, Jillian, you're leveraging your renaming, because renaming is where we put a lot of our thinking in, because that is something you can manipulate. And it, just as a side note, it makes your breakout rooms exponentially easier if you have efficient and logical renaming methodologies. And so we've put a lot of thought and effort into it. We tend to have team numbers first, then letters, then names, and then we have other information after the names to help the presenter know where is this person from, what is their level of engagement and risk that they're willing to engage in. And so we have all that information in people's names. I'm going to transition in these last 5 minutes to speaker to speaker. Speaker to speaker engagement and interaction is one that I've probably learned the most about in the last year and a half. And one of the cool things and one of the bizarre things is it's super lonely presenting on an online platform, being the speaker. Like right now, as I'm the speaker, I'm looking into this tiny little camera and I feel totally alone because my audience, at least the camera kind of looks like a little, like a little mouse, it's kind of adorable. So I can I can anthropomorphize it a little bit, but in general, it's a pretty lonely spot to be presenting during a training. And so one of the things that we do, and I talked about Trillian before, that instant messaging platform, is that we'll have different threads. And one thread will be just for letting the speaker know stuff that's going on in the room, chat, all that stuff. But another thread is to give insight to the speaker, to cheer them on, let them know what's going on. And really, like, this has been one of the things I've learned is when I've been the speaker, it's super lonely. And oh, that's a great comment. Or, Jillian just posted in the chat, great point about the name tags. Jillian is a fantastic person on these events and is someone who tends to greet people up front, but is also either the speaker or the support for the speaker in a lot of our events. And it's just a natural thing to support people and let people know that they're doing a good job, because you're not getting a lot of reinforcement back as a speaker. And this is important because this is engagement. And I didn't realize how important this was, because in-person events, the speaker naturally gets affirmation and engagement from a crowd, but there's so much less in an online event, especially if you're in a webinar. In a meeting, at least the speaker can go to gallery view on their own and check it out. But in a webinar, you are alone in space. It's like Gravity with Sandra Bullock, and I'm not going to go into it, but so you're out there. And so what I really want to focus on is, and what I've learned a lot, is how to really effectively support a speaker. Now, it's not my time to get my affirmations met with the speaker. I don't need to be saying all these things and getting the speaker's attention. It's about calculated moves to make sure that the speaker feels supported and doesn't feel alone, but also is helping move the speaker forward in little slight ways. And this is a skill that, like, I've really had to work on and develop. And I've been watching people like Jillian, or when Bob is supporting Judith, or Judith supporting Bob. It's brilliant. It's just like awesome to see how they move in, or Barbara or Kate, and how people really move to support the speaker. But the tool we use is Trillion. And that's the thing that we found to be the best to facilitate engagement and also keep the speaker on track. Now, in the last couple of minutes, there was a couple of do's and don'ts. I have like 30 pages of notes of things that I've learned over the last year and a half. And I wanted to go all technical on you, and I ended up shifting it. And so I think that I'm hoping this serves better, because to pretend that it's just technical skills would be misleading. What we have here and what we're doing here is really, a team effort, and we're constantly improving on it ourselves. And it's creating the most incredible trainings I've ever been a part of. And I think in many ways, our online trainings, in certain ways, are better than our in-person trainings because of how much we put into them. And then now we're going to face the cool challenge of making our in-person trainings just as good as our online trainings as we move to hybrid, which is going to be a whole other thing, which will be awesome. But as we move to time, I'm going to have Jack put a link in the chat. And I just covered a little bit of this stuff today about, speaker to audience engagement, audience to speaker, audience to audience, and speaker to speaker, or speaker support engagement. But if you have any questions, or if you want to join the team as a volunteer, or if you want to come join our team as staff, or if you're interested in attending a training, want to know more information, whatever, just click on the link, and then I'll follow up with you personally, and I'll make sure that we get to go over it together and talk about any volunteering opportunities, media staffing opportunities we have, or upcoming events that we have, so that you could really experience firsthand what we're talking about, not only as a participant, but in the teaming experience, and how to create an excellent environment for people in their lives. Because right now, for a lot of people, this is the only form of engagement they're getting. And we have to capitalize and leverage on it and make sure that we're serving them as much as possible. So with that, I thank you all so much. We're going to put up a slide here with my email on it. Please feel free to email me with any questions directly. And if you click on the link, it may be easier, because that'll tell me a little bit more about you, and then I can make sure I'm giving you the right information. But any support you need, would love to help. I feel honored to have been on this team over the last couple of years, and how we've faced COVID and the pandemic and moving to online. So thank you all so much. This has been really sweet to be with you during lunchtime in this little lunch and learn. And I will be doing more talks like this going forward, to let more and more people know about what we're doing and how we're doing it. So also any feedback would be really nice too as well. If there's anything else you'd want to know in future talks, please let me know. So thank you all so much. Have a great day, and talk to you soon.